We are back with another episode of Black Girls Vibe. I'm Michelle.
And I'm Andrea.
What's up, friend?
Hey there.
What's been going on?
I can't really call it. Just still trying to maintain and hanging in you know,
Yeah, same old, same old.
yeah, so that's about how it feels.
But the good thing is there's been a lot of sports stuff that's happened since we last convened.
Yay.
Just
True, very
just 2
true.
weeks ago. Let's go ahead and get the saddest part of for the discussion out of the way. The Tampa Bay Bucks defeating handily defeating uh,
Yeah.
handily defeating the Kansas City Chiefs 2 weeks ago in the Super Bowl, giving Tom Brady his seventh ring,
Mm-hmm.
six with the Patriots and one with the Bucks.
Mm-hmm.
Silver lining, because we delved a lot into the whole Brady component of why there was a reluctance to support the Bucks in this endeavor.
Right.
Silver lining is Byron Leftwich and Todd Bowles and the tremendously diverse coaching staff of the Bucks get a W and a Super Bowl ring, and hopefully the opportunity to leverage that into upward mobility within the coaching ranks.
Yes. So if there is a silver lining indeed to the Bucks winning, that is definitely it. So yeah,
Yeah,
no, it's really good to see the diversity in that coaching staff. So we'll see what happens and what opportunities do unfold for them. But yeah, it's great to see.
yeah. I mean, we could
Considering.
considering, yes, just trying to be, half glass half full on this thing rather than
Right. Right.
'cause if I wanted to see it as empty, I totally could for a very long time. But we're
Ah,
gonna view the positive in it and hope that it. I know we've discussed it a couple of times now. Our disappointment with the fact that Eric Bieniemy remains the OC at Kansas City.
mhm.
Uh, but hopefully, I don't know if it sounds naive to hope that Leftwich and Bowles get opportunities, but at the same time, it's increasingly undeniable that they are both very capable at their jobs, uh, and should be, in the conversation as these opportunities arise. So
Right.
we'll have to take yet another wait and see approach. The season's
Yeah.
over, and so yeah, we'll see them in August. In the meantime,
Oh, okay.
oh, there's so much tennis stuff we could talk about. And you know what? I said that Tom Brady getting a ring was the saddest thing we would talk about, but let me go ahead
It's
and amend
not.
that. I'm gonna amend that.
It's
This
not
is
if we're
this
about
is
to go into
this is about
Australian Open.
this is about to be the saddest thing.
Okay.
That's-
That's
yeah,
fair.
yeah, yeah. And so, between the two, I've been clear throughout this podcast series that between the two of us, you're the in-house tennis person and expert. So I'm gonna ask you to cook a little bit on your assessment of the women's side of the Australian Open and your assessment of how it ended. And
Yeah, so we have clearly we're both, and I think a lot of us are rooting for Serena. We want to see her get to 24, and we also want to see her get to 25. So she is in essence been chasing 24 for I guess 3 years now.
just about, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and has had many opportunities either in finals or being competitive up through the semifinals of the Grand Slams to get there, to get 24. And so Australian Open this year was no different. She played, she had a couple spots in some of the earlier rounds, but she looked like she looks in the best shape that I think she's been since giving birth,
yes,
which says a lot. Um, especially a woman who's been, or just not even a woman, an athlete who has been competitive at that level for over 2 decades says a lot. And so, like, she looked very well. And then, you know, got into that semifinal with Naomi Osaka, who also looks very well,
Who looks
who looks amazing.
amazing. Yeah.
Played every bit of amazing, and is what, 14 years? I think Serena's junior, somewhere around in there.
Okay. Okay.
Um,
I don't
so
know Osaka's age, so that's
yeah, I
on
think she's
my bad.
like 25,
Okay.
26, something, I think. And so
Okay.
Serena's 39.
Mhm.
Um, and it was, I mean, kudos to Naomi. There were glimpses of, Serena. I think it's just one of those days, right? I think, and Serena really explained it well for what she could in her post match presser.
Mhm.
It's just the unforced errors, and you
Yeah.
can't have that many unforced errors against a player like Osaka. And I think for the type of game that Osaka has, none of Serena's uh, competitors in her prior matches in the Open had that type of game and that type of
Yeah.
power. So I think you got to bring your A plus plus game, and she just didn't for that Osaka match in the
Yeah.
semifinals. So we're left with the next Grand Slam where hopefully, she can
And
pull it through.
that would be the French if the schedule goes back to pre-COVID notions.
Right. Right.
Yeah, I mean, Serena will be 40, I think in September.
I think so.
Yeah, she'll be 40. Been playing for 26 years. I mean, I saw these numbers this weekend. I'm like, that's a long
It's a
time. It's a
long
long time.
time.
26 years.
It's a long
Literally,
time.
2/3 of her life she's been a player. And what I see in Osaka is like Serena Jr.
Mm-hmm.
Less her, like like it's almost as though Serena is Osaka's muse, and
Right.
she's and it's not even like she's like their opponents. This is what Serena wrought.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you pursue excellence for over 2 decades and achieve it, and those who come behind you are going to aspire to that.
Right.
And so Naomi is almost like the inevitable consequence of having a Serena play. Like, it's what
Absolutely.
you hope and want to see. At the same time, there's something bittersweet about seeing Serena Jr. be right now. The only thing that's between Serena and 24 and tying
Mm-hmm.
Margaret Court is
Mm-hmm.
Osaka. Like,
Right.
that's the only thing.
Right. Because she's only getting better.
Yes,
Um,
yes, Lord.
and barring an injury, I
And,
expect to
and we
see
don't want
Osaka.
that for her.
No, we don't. We don't. And so you expect Osaka, with how she definitely played in the Australian Open, to be at least in the semifinals, but definitely, even in the finals for the near future. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like, who is challenging her in that same way?
As Keith Sweat would say,
Nobody.
nobody.
Nope.
Nobody.
Nobody.
Yeah.
Nobody at
So
all.
so even Serena, and that's the tough part.
Mhm.
So I'm just hopeful that through some completely unforeseeable set of circumstances that would not involve Osaka. Um, Listen, let me just put it bluntly. Like, hopefully, Serena will find 2 occasions to beat Osaka. Like that.
That's it. That's it.
Now, and as I understand it, like Serena had 26 unforced errors and Osaka had 21. So it wasn't a banner day for her either. But and I will admit, the way those matches run and the way my sleep works
Oh, listen. The Australian Open is not set up for anybody.
on like this part of the earth.
No.
No, it's
No.
not. It's not.
No.
No, it's not. It's not.
It's like setting alarms for 2 a.m.
Yeah,
to
yeah,
watch it live.
yeah.
So yeah, I mean, you're right. It wasn't the cleanest match for Osaka, and she was still able to
And she
pull it out.
still,
Uh-huh.
yeah. And it's from what I've observed just over her last several matches, is like her mental toughness is scary. Osaka, like
Right.
it's how unflappable uh, she is. I mean, even on like in like gentler moments, like when a butterfly
It's like,
like
oh,
landed on her face, and she was just like, "Oh, okay."
oh,
She's
oh.
just very matter of fact about it. She didn't like have a fit or anything. Yeah, she didn't do that thing. So she's just very unflappable, and I think that's a key. Obviously that's a key skill set to have when you're playing sports at an elite level amongst equally elite athletes, such as those found at that level of women's tennis, including Serena.
Hmm.
So I will say, speaking of the other Williams sister, I just love Venus.
Oh,
Like, just she's out there still pushing through. And if Serena is 39, about to be 40, then Venus is.
Venus
It doesn't.
has to be
They're
40.
they're not. I mean, they're probably like more stair steps. So I don't think she's deep in her. Obviously she's not deep in her 40s, but she's got to be 41
I would think
or
so.
so.
Or
41,
or or
42,
approaching it
or
if
approach.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Venus is
Yeah.
in her 40s. No
Right.
hard stop. To see her continue to try to push through just warms my heart because Serena has done so much for. They both have done so much for tennis and
They
sports
have.
generally. So always want to see both of them do well. Uh,
Yeah.
so
But
so
there are more opportunities, so
yeah,
well,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, I can recall not the Open, but Wimbledon 2019, wearing my Arthur Ashe shirt, breakfast at Wimbledon, had gone to Panera because this was going to be the day that Serena got 24. That was a year and a half ago.
Right.
Oh, close, yeah, coming closer to 2 years. So yeah, it just feels like we're just waiting every time to see it, But where I have gotten over the last few weeks, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on it too, whether you've changed. For me, Serena's the greatest tennis player ever if she stays at 23 and retires at 23. She's the greatest.
I totally agree with
Hard
that. I
stop.
hard yeah, like I'm totally with you. I don't know how much of is in her to still the competitor in her I think is still, I'm getting that record.
Right, right.
I feel pretty confident in making that statement. But yeah, no, if this is her last year playing, and we've seen her at the final Australian, and she's just making the closeout of all the Grand Slams,
Hmm.
and she's like, I'm hanging it up. Okay,
Yeah,
then, but yes,
yeah. Um,
absolutely, there is no doubt, and I know a couple players on the men's side with Federer and Nadal are in there 20 plus with titles, but she's still hands down
yeah,
male or female.
yeah. And when you stack up how they got to their respective numbers and victories,
Hmm.
Margaret Court kind of comes off the page as far as the comparison, right? Like
Yeah,
she played in the like slam era. I will say this to the end: she never had to face Althea Gibson.
true.
So yeah, she has 24. But she has see. Yeah, I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to go back to the football conversation.
Gotcha.
That's all I'll say. All I'll say. Her path to 24, I submit, and I think you would agree, was much smoother than Serena's path to 23 has been.
Absolutely. And I think the next closest comparison on the women's side is Steffi Graf, but Steffi
Mhm.
didn't play as long as
Yeah,
Serena has.
right, right.
So I think she's now another 10 years in past what Steffi
That's
played.
Steffi. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
Well,
it, yeah.
I wanted to ask you about this. We've not actually, I mean, we've talked about this before, but we've not talked about this in the context of recent complaints about it. But even on our Facebook page, there have been some conversations this week around Chrissy Everett's commentary.
Mm-hmm.
Saw the subtle face change.
Oh, you saw that. Okay.
I did. Um, uh, and I think one of the tribers was saying that she felt as though, Chrissy is Chrissy and she brings that same voice to every match, regardless who's playing, um, which could very well be the case. I can say that and perhaps I can qualify that I, as a Black woman, experience Chrissy's comments in a very specific way that, that come across, they come across feeling as microaggressions.
Mm-hmm.
And so someone was asking, like, well, can somebody give me an example of the type of, like, something Chrissy has said? And it's like, it's kind of too subtle for me to tell you. Like, it's not like she said something really incendiary most of the time.
Right.
It's just subtle digs all the time.
Yeah, and I did see that, and there has been a few articles around about Chrissy. I can't say that if Chrissy has called or when she has called other matches, I've been as attuned, but it is like the subtle digs. Like, it's just words that if you're not a Black female, maybe you wouldn't pick up on the fact that it's like, but she doesn't make that same analogy or describe
Yeah.
other other tennis players who are not Black in that same way. It seems to me it's been really more focused in on Serena and Venus, but there, the Sloanes and a couple of the other young Black female African American players who still get that same type of description about them that other players just don't.
Yeah.
But
I
you're
mean,
right. Like, you can't really, it's not so
really
blatant.
amorphous. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like amoeba. Like, you can't quite just grab it and like, oh, I got it. This is what it is. But I can, things like suggesting or stating that, like, Serena brings drama,
Right.
or or that she can be, like, too easily distracted. That she just needs to focus on tennis and not,
Mm-hmm.
kind of a vein of shut up and dribble. Right.
Basically, right. Like, you can't have all these other things or
Yeah,
all these
like
other
the
interests.
fashion and all these things. And, in the context of what makes a well-rounded person, you would think having outside activities, I mean, we all need to be well-rounded, athletes
Right.
included. So you might think that commentators would, like, support and embrace that rather than raise that as a reason why performance is poor,
Mm-hmm.
or has been off. So yeah, I don't have a lot of favorable things to say as far as my assessment of Chrissy's, just how she brings herself to conversations around the elite Black women tennis players,
Mm-hmm.
and Serena specifically.
Right.
I don't like using the word hateration or holleration in this dancery, but
But what better word?
I
I
mean,
like.
yeah, I don't like to use it because I feel like it can be inartful and it's not very specific. But if you wanted, like, a textbook definition or feeling like that, that's what it feels like.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, it's because the Williams sisters really came in and just changed tennis.
mhm, mhm,
Like, forget women's tennis. They changed tennis. Um, and especially Serena with her body type and her athleticism, and like, that's not the typical tennis player build for a woman,
right,
right? So
right,
I think it's some of that of her physical appearance um and the strength and the power that she brought to the game. I mean, she's serving at higher speeds and faster speeds than some of the men. So,
yeah,
I mean,
it's
let's be
insane.
clear.
It's
She can
insane.
take some of the men to task
Yeah, yeah,
easily,
yeah.
um, even now at this age. So I don't know. I'm with you. Like, the hateration doesn't maybe artfully articulate what it is, but it is there and it's present and it's been there for about as long as they've been on the tour and
Oh,
playing.
absolutely, absolutely. And as a, I don't know if you want to call this a related aside, the double standard is very interesting when you talk about like Serena's physicality and build, and we've seen the racist tropes over the years that have come from that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and in the quarterfinal round, and I cannot recall her opponent's name, but uh, Serena was bringing it to her, and the girl had a complete meltdown.
Yes.
And nobody brought the heat.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
Meanwhile,
Nope.
recall that it was an Australian cartoonist that probably drew the most racist cartoon, like caricature of Serena that I've ever seen, of her like this, like big lips, dark skinned, like
Right.
almost ape-like in figure, stomping on a tennis racket. And I think it was after the 19 US Open. I don't even think it was an Australian Open related. I think it was when she got into it with, I don't know if it was a line judge, with the finals match with Osaka.
With Osaka, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But the inherent racism that was in the cartoons that were drawn kind of as a commentary on that, and all the sports commentators who had something to say about it, but nobody has taken the young lady to task for her full on
Right.
meltdown.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Um, and I get it. To whom much is given, much is required. Serena certainly has a higher, more elevated profile, but rules are rules. Poor behavior is poor behavior.
Mm-hmm. And that was poor.
And that was poor. That
That
racket
was
didn't have a
poor.
chance.
It didn't. I felt horrible for it.
That racket went straight to the upper room. It was, mm-mm. Yeah, it was RIP racket. Like it was,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I guess if she never advances, whomever, and we don't even know her name, right? Like I can't
It's
recall it.
escaping me. I
But
I can't pinpoint it.
point blank, like the double standard exists, and will just continue to be perpetuated. Joker won on the men's side. You got anything to say about that? I need to be stuck.
The the only thing I do have to say is that I didn't see it.
Right.
So up until right now,
You didn't
no,
know. You didn't know.
the last match I saw was
Surprise.
right. It's like, oh yeah, there was a men's final.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Joker won.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
Okay.
congrats.
Yeah.
Yeah. The
Yeah.
last match I saw was Nadal and the gentleman whose last name I'm not going to pronounce because I can't say it correctly. So,
That's fair.
and it was a 5 set and it was really good.
Yes. I didn't see it either, but
Hmm.
I saw that it went to 5 sets, and it looked like it was a good match for
Yeah.
sure. For
So,
sure. Well, that is it for Australian Open, and I guess we'll wait to see what's going to happen with um, French Open and Wimbledon. It sounds like what I'm hearing tentatively, and if you've heard the same or differently, say something. It looks like U.S. Open for now is trying to do some form of like having some capacity for fans.
hmm yeah.
Uh, which for Ash, as big and cavernous as that is, I could see. I mean, if you really limit capacity, you could have fans in Ash. Armstrong, it's a little tight.
It is a little tight.
A little
I'm not
tight.
sure about that.
Kinda,
Yeah.
this is you this and Armstrong, so it'll
Yeah.
just be interesting to see how they work that through. And I guess also, like, depending on the rate at which vaccinations continue to ramp up, I guess that could influence all of these different, and with how France
Hmm.
and England are looking as far as numbers. I guess within the next couple of months will obviously influence what happens there. Uh, but we know that these sports leagues and these tournaments need to they are revenue generating business enterprises. They're
Absolutely.
in it for the profit.
Yep.
And so we know that if they can find a way and a justification to host the rest of the Grand Slams in 2021, they will,
They absolutely will.
which is a perfect segue.
I know where we going.
We're coming down I-20 to Atlanta.
Welcome to Atlanta.
Welcome to Atlanta.
Where the
Exactly.
NBA players play.
Yes, yes. And where COVID plays,
Oh, it does.
unfortunately.
All in these streets.
Unfortunately.
Mhm.
But with that having been said, All-Star Game, 2 weeks from today.
Mhm.
A little mini bubble. Players fly in privately Saturday night, bubble up, play
Mhm.
Sunday, fly
Mhm.
out Sunday,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
NBA is having no porties.
No,
No,
no NBA sanctioned
yeah,
parties.
no NBA sanctioned anything other than the activities that will
Mhm.
occur within State Farm Arena.
Correct.
Well, you are the ATL in between us, so tell us your reaction to having to all hosting, and share like what your mayor said. Like tell us, give us the goods around what Atlantans are thinking about this.
Yeah, so those of us who live in Atlanta are like, what? Well, first of all, a couple, like some folks were like, what? The All-Star game is yes, the All-Star game is coming to Atlanta. Yes. Our mayor said, thank you, but no thank you. But okay. um, and then, NBA commissioner, I listened to him talk on TNT the other day, and I heard him, and I was listening. Yeah, I was listening for understanding, not to respond.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
the intentions are there. I get it, and so he was talking about it's a TNT event, and the TNT crew they're in Atlanta, so to take whatever number that is, it
right.
really outweighs the number of players who would be coming and team, coaches, whatever, the non TNT staff.
Hmm.
But to uproot the TNT staff to another location, it just made more sense to bring the players here. Okay, I get that. But then he talked a little bit about the HBCU aspect that we talked about a couple weeks ago, which still to me doesn't really make any sense in the pandemic because you're not anyway. Um, it just but he emphasized like it's not like this is not, it's a televised event, watch this from the TV, don't come out, whatever. Sounds good in theory, but it's real like kind of naive because like we all know
We do. We
it's
know
Atlanta, you don't
y'all are gonna
have
be
to
lit.
have,
Mm-mm,
listen, the
mm-mm.
the
You
the
listen.
whole
You go to belt. You go to the belt line right now. It's a sunny day. Go to the belt
oh
line
my
right now.
gosh, I'm sure it's been so many people out at the different spots along the belt line. Like we are open, we have been open. This is just something to add another layer for people to come here if it's cold where they are, or it's Atlanta. So it's going to be a party, NBA sanctioned or not. Like there is a club promoter or promoters who will have something
Mhm.
for the for our wonderful out of town guests. So I mean, that's just the reality of it. You don't have to have NBA sanctioned anything.
Not at all. Not at all. Um, so yeah, y'all be safe. You posted about Adam Silver's interview on Inside the NBA,
Yeah.
and to the point where I was curious enough, I went and watched it yesterday. Like I had to see. Yeah, it was a lot of tap dancing
It
and
was.
like shuffling and trying to navigate. He said something very telling to me, which comes back to this point around like this is business, like this is all
Mhm.
about like he said, when we abruptly shut operations down last March, there were a lot of people giving us like a pat on the back for doing it and all this. And he said, you know, the attaboy isn't for shutting down. The attaboy really is for figuring out how to operate safely and like how to come back and operate safely in COVID.
Right.
What we know about that is that there's a fundamental flaw in the notion of being able to operate safely and without any risk in COVID in the context of indoor sports.
Right.
So you can't, like, it's hard to put safe and indoor sports of any kind in this moment. It's hard to get them to play together. So, that was his way of like signaling, don't get it twisted. We just had to figure out how we could come back to making this money.
Right. Because it is a business.
It is a business. Yeah. And because of the risk management orientation of the business, when we realized we had at least two players on one team that had it, we went into risk management aspect of the business temporarily.
Right.
We're not doing that again. Like, when he was asked, he said, we're not doing that again. Like, we're going to find a way. And so it seems to me like they very much aligned. They've transitioned and have been very much aligned. They're more aligned with like the NFL model. Because let's be reminded, NFL played all 256 games of the regular season.
Right.
Even if it was like a week later, they played games. If it was on a Tuesday afternoon,
right, with a third or fourth string quarterback.
right.
We're playing
with the lineman as their QB1.
Like, oh, put me in. Okay,
the center is taking snaps. Okay,
the game must go on.
Yeah, so I feel like Silver has transitioned from a more cautious posture that you might expect to see from a lawyer to a more like business oriented balance. Like, that lawyer's still working, but like the thrust now is the business, and we can't take another L in 2021 as we did in 2020. So it's play on.
Yeah.
And spring training, we're on the cusp of, we're right on the cusp of that. So it'll be interesting to see how MLB, like, what their season looks like, because I think hopefully they will have had enough lessons learned from kind of the tumultuous start of the last season of last year.
I know, that's right. Yes.
Yeah,
that was horrible.
I'm curious to see how they get it started this time.
Let me also add about MLB, just a reminder. The MLB All-Star Game is here this year too.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Atlanta.
So that's where
the All-Star Games reside.
Right. And that's on Mary Had a Little Lamb. I'm sorry. Yeah. So maybe by July, I think what we have to be prayerful for, like, for 2 weeks, it's done so, but for big events planned for months from now, later on in the year. Hopefully, maybe the vaccination piece will create a foreseeable, like a manageable path to having a relatively safe all-star game with fans. I don't know. But I was seeing some data. I was reading some data yesterday around like this, like, when we'll approach herd immunity, and it's such a. There's so many factors that go into it, but the bottom line is, whether you approach it, sooner or later, a lot of people will die from COVID between now and when we reach herd immunity.
Right.
Like, more like hundreds of thousands, 100,000, between now and herd immunity. So we can't hang our hat on that being like the path to relative normalcy. So we'll see what the implications are for all these good sporting events that we would typically be all
I know.
we had already started talking about the All-Star
Mhm.
MLB game.
Mhm.
Gonna be
Mhm.
it.
Well,
We've taken a lot of sports L's because of COVID. I'm not that I'm keeping exact count, but it's there's a count amassing. I just can't get over the Final
we
Four.
still think it Final Four.
Oh, I just can't. I
Yeah.
can barely say it like
I know. I know. I know.
so. Here's hoping that COVID just gets under control.
Yes.
Uh, you know, getting sports back would be nice, but it's not. It can't be the thrust. Can't be the reason for getting back to like. It's got to be more fundamental than that. But
Exactly.
hopefully, we'll turn a corner soon where we can talk about safely having fans back in some arenas in some limited capacity. Um, Wanted to switch gears a little bit and ask you about a school that I know for your family has a college, an HBCU for your family that has significance
Mhm.
in a special place. One Jackson State University.
Oh boy.
Oh
Yes.
boy,
Oh
uh,
boy.
I think Coach Prime. That game may be on now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, their first game of the season against Edmond Waters out of Florida. Um, Maybe it's on ESPN3.
Okay.
Yeah. Uh, and I think that, and it's the first time that Edmund Waters is playing a D1 team in a minute. Jackson State, they're the favorites going in, and wishing Coach Prime all the best.
I know. Yeah, I'll have to check out if not the game, depending on I don't even know if I have ESPN3. Uh,
Yeah, I don't really know how that. I feel like is ESPN3 like the online like you get it through the
oh,
online platform. I'm not sure that it's a
like an
proper
actual
as
channel.
I'm pointing towards my time. I'm
I
not sure
know.
it's a TV channel. I think it's like connected to like online stuff.
Okay. I may check. If I can't pick it up, I'll maybe try and find some highlights later.
Yeah, yeah. Anything else going on in the sports world that has caught your attention?
Man, we've talked well, we did our Super Bowl recap. We talked a lot about the Australian.
Mhm.
Little NBA, I will say I still haven't watched too many games yet, but I'll get there. I'll get there.
I haven't. I haven't either. I mean, I'm where I was 2 weeks ago. I haven't watched many games. I have put a game on,
Okay.
but didn't really get up. So that's progress. Um, we're just in like I do tend to miss football, like just having something to eat, just put on to have on like Sundays.
Yeah.
So that this is that season of adjustment. College basketball on the men's side, like it's just turned on its head. Duke and UNC played a week or two ago, and my Tar Heels beat Duke, and I couldn't even revel. Like we suck. Like
Because
we're
they're both
both
still unranked,
we're
right?
both unranked. Like
Yeah. The hollow victory.
yeah, like it was so hollow. I didn't even enjoy putting the Jordan face on my man Lamar. Like I was like, my heart wasn't in it at all. I'm like, well,
Oh,
I always post it, so but I did not enjoy it. Looks like Virginia, if I'm not mistaken, may be the hot ticket in the ACC.
okay.
Alabama's like ranked or was ranked and doing well, which
Okay.
basketball isn't always our forte.
No, and I'm pretty sure I don't know, it may have been a couple weeks ago that Georgia Tech was making some moves. I don't know where they are now,
Really,
but yeah.
really, yeah. I mean, Tech. I mean, it feels like Tech used to be kind of a basketball
Mhm.
institution of sorts.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Were they when you were there as a student? Were they in like a were they in a rebuilding season? Were they good? Like, did you go to many games?
I didn't go to many games. I gosh, I'm trying to remember who would have been there at the time. Um, but they were pretty good to watch, and I've been to games since then,
Hmm.
and they've kind of had some peak seasons, so they may have been coming right out of a rebuilding when I was there.
Okay.
Yeah,
Cool. Cool. It's always cool to talk to folks who go to schools that, I mean, until my recent affiliation with Florida, my schools I'm affiliated with didn't make much noise. So it's always great to talk to folks who did go to schools that made sports noise. Super dope. I just quickly looked up like the top 10, like AP on the men's side. Gonzaga
yeah.
set
Tomato, tomato. Hmm.
1, Baylor 2, Michigan 3, Ohio State 4, the Illinois 5, Houston,
Hmm.
6, Virginia 7, Bama 8, Oklahoma 9, and Nova 10.
Nice. Okay.
And there's no Duke or UNC
Mm.
in the top 25. So
Mm.
it's just that year. It's just that year. So there's that. From a history standpoint, I will point out, unrelated to anything we've talked about to this point, today marks, and I hope I'm getting my numbers right. Yeah. Today should mark the 50, carry the one, the 56th anniversary of the assassination of Malcolm X. Uh, um, and an important, obviously, an important figure in American history, but an important figure in this way in American sports history, given
Yeah.
his relationship with Cassius Clay, who, because of the influence of Malcolm X, went on to convert to the Nation of Islam and changed his name to Muhammad Ali.
Right.
So we can't, when we talk about influential sports figures in America, obviously Muhammad Ali is like on the short list of the greatest.
Hmm.
Uh, but his connection to Malcolm X frequently gets not enough attention for how much Malcolm X influenced his political awakening, if you will.
Right.
Uh, and so, I don't know that there is Ali, the athlete activist, without the influence of a Malcolm X. Uh,
Yeah. Oh,
so
that's
it
a good point. Yeah.
seems appropriate to mention that on this day. Uh, uh, that unfortunately marks the anniversary of his assassination by another member, by a member of the Nation of Islam. By the time he was assassinated, Malcolm was no longer a member of the nation. Um, but yeah, have you seen any good? I mean, we primarily talk about sports around here, but we do other things too. I mean, we hadn't been able to do many other things in light of worldwide pandemic, but
Right.
have you, have you seen any good movies, or what's caught your eye on HBO Max, Netflix? Anything worth recommending to the peoples?
Yeah, well, since you did mention the Malcolm X assassination, because I was actually had the movie on. I think TNT is airing it, the Denzel Washington
Hmm.
version of Malcolm X. So I was watching that actually before we jumped on and
Okay.
started chatting. Yeah. And then since you mentioned too the connection with Muhammad Ali and Malcolm X, one night in Miami, I know we have both seen
Yep.
on Amazon Prime.
That's right.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So for those who have not watched, definitely go check that out.
Right.
It's really good, really well done, and directed by Regina King. If I
Yes.
have that correct, yep.
Yes. That's right. That's right.
Um,
Speaking of Regina King, have you seen her guesting on Saturday Night Live last week?
no,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
I need to check that out.
Yeah. I haven't seen it either. I need to check it out
Okay.
too. Just, for me, if it happens after 10 p.m., yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So I've been telling myself I'm going to go to Hulu or wherever and watch it. So yeah, Regina King was the guest on Saturday Night Live, not yesterday, but Saturday week.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll check it out.
So
Yeah.
check that out. I'm trying to think of any other movies or anything with like a sports related theme. I haven't seen anything too uh, uh, it's not sports related, but if we're talking about like revolutionaries and who were assassinated, Judas and the Black Messiah
Mm,
uh,
mm-hmm.
is a movie that I'd recommend folks see. And it's a I think a good entry point for those who don't know about who uh, Fred Hampton was. It's a good starting point to initiate conversation and exploration around who he was, and so young, right? Like 20,
No.
assassinated at age 21.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't
I,
realize how young he was.
yeah, I've seen some articles that talk about the fact that the casting of older actors to play these folks who are in their early 20s kind of does them a disservice because you lose sight of how like these were, you don't want to call them kids, but these were very young people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, these were very young people. I would recommend Judas and the Black Messiah. And those are really, I mean, One Night in Miami and that um, are kind of the two major like black themed films that I've seen recently that were pretty good and I'd recommend.
Yep. Same here. I can't think of any others off the top of my head, but those are, I think, two really good recommendations.
Awesome.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, friend, I think we have explored all the topics of all the things that have occurred. Now we've got to decide when we want to talk again. Do we want to do it, before before the All-Star game or a day or
Hmm.
two after? So let's spend some time figuring out. Um, I know you'll be sheltering in place.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
The whole weekend.
Yeah, they can have it.
They can. Whatever it is that's out there, they
Have
can
you
have all of it.
Have you seen any parties being promoted? Like, have any flyers come your way? Have you started to see the?
I
Uh,
haven't yet. But maybe it's too soon, but
yeah, maybe
I
so.
give it another week, but no, nothing's come across. There are a couple places that come to mind that would potentially have something. But I haven't seen anything yet.
Yeah. And we know the reality is that the people who are coming. I mean, people were coming the minute they heard it was going to be on the 7th, so they've booked and planned.
Absolutely.
And they will figure it out like what they're going to do when they get there.
Because we're open. So, you know.
You're open and you never close. Yeah, you never
Mm-mm.
closed. And before we close out, I want to send prayers and love and light to those in Texas and Louisiana and Arkansas who, because of power grid issues, have been without water and heat and power,
Mm-hmm.
or have had their homes substantially damaged as a result of busted pipes. Just know that we are thinking about you and praying for you, and uh, hoping that you can find a way to recover from this. We know
Yeah,
still things are still very much in flux, but we're praying for you.
absolutely.
Awesome. Well, friend, we will talk in 2 weeks or so. We got to figure out when. And for all you all who are listening out there, we really appreciate your support. Check us out on your favorite podcast platform. Subscribe to us so that you get notices about when our episodes come out. So when we're hot and fresh like the Krispy Kreme donuts.
The hot light is on.
The hot hot
Right.
now. Is it hot now? Is that the
Hot
light?
now, yes.
So
I
you
know
will
when
know when
that
we are
hot light
hot
bling.
now. Exactly. Exactly. So we appreciate y'all's support and we will see you again in 2 weeks.